What's every law firm's goal? It's to retain as many qualified cases as possible. And you want to do it at the lowest cost. I've worked with so many law firms that spend a tremendous amount of money, millions a month. And for them, they've always been able to default to well, I'll just spend more. But they may not admit this, but their actions speak louder than their words. And they'll just spend more money and get more clients. And that's just not the way we run a business. We have to be a lot more efficient. We have to be a lot more focused. Unlike most other businesses, most law firms are unable to cold call for new clients. Right? We can't say, hey, I saw you were in an accident yesterday. I'd love to be able to help you out. I'm a personal injury lawyer. Can't do that. Illegal, unethical, not allowed, right? So what do we have to do? And our ability to sign clients or even to get folks to reach out to us is really dependent upon our response power. And when it comes to responding, we can't disregard that our response will either push someone away or pull somebody in. There's no in between. That's the power, right? We have to understand that it's not when people call up, there's this awful entitlement theory that arrogant owners of businesses have, where they go, they call me, they obviously want me. That's not fair. That's not the way you run a business. You really have to tell yourself, if they call me, then they're interested in hearing what we do and they're considering us. And oh, by the way, they're probably considering one or two other law firms as well. And I want you guys to remember that responding to leads in our industry is not just a task. It's literally the lifeblood of our business. It's the key to nurturing relationships and the pathway to sustained growth and success. Now, in order to have opportunities to respond, we need to market, okay? Period. And our marketing must be strategic and aggressive because the legal industry's competitive landscape is unparalleled. I'm going to give you a stat here. Did you know that according to Search Engine Watch, 19 of the top 25 most expensive keywords on Google are searches related to personal injury law firms? Isn't that crazy? Look at this for a moment. I mean, Dallas truck accident lawyer, PP, $425.70. Now I'm going to assume for purposes of that one person in this group that doesn't know what PPC is, allow me to share it with you, right? So PPC is pay-per-click. Google basically says, hey, I have the best platform for people to find businesses. And Google says to the business owners, hey guys, everybody comes here looking for you. And if you want to show up at the top of the list, you either have to do one of two things. Your website better be tremendously valuable and it's got to have years of experience and have to check all these check boxes, or you can pay me. Just pay me X amount of dollars to show up. If someone clicks on your site, you pay me. And then you say to Google, yeah, but what if I pay you for those clicks and those clicks don't turn into clients? Well, Google says, I'm sorry to hear that. Good luck. I can't help you there. What do you mean you can't help me there? You're paying me per click. You're paying me every time someone clicks on your site. You're not paying me every time one of those clicks becomes a client. I only tell you all of this because I want you to understand how much we're gambling. As business owners, we're gambling so much money with no guarantee that we're going to create clients. So then the question obviously becomes, why are we spending so much money on marketing, right? Three main reasons. Number one, because our success rate to earn a fee from a retained case is and should be very high. We're good at what we do, right? We help people. How many? I would say the majority, the overwhelming majority of people that hire you, you're helping them out. There's a successful conclusion that you've created for them. Number two, the more we help, the more we earn, and then the more we can invest. That's the life, the circle of being a business owner. The more successful you are, the more money you can invest in the business. And lastly, and it can't go unstated, is that we obviously trust our intake process.
That makes so much sense.
Or do we just blindly hope that it's good enough and good enough brings us profit? I bring that in there because it's important to understand. Some people are I recently had a masterclass with about 35 or so law firms, and a very well-known law firm. We were talking about reports and dashboards, and they were honest enough to say, yeah, we don't really look at reports or dashboards. And they weren't saying it from an arrogant standpoint. They're actually saying it from a, hey, this is a fault of ours. This is one of our inefficiencies, and we have to do better at looking at reports and dashboards. And the problem is, if they were not making money, or if their profit was not what it has been, there's no doubt in my mind they'd be all over reports and dashboards. But I think for some people, the profit outweighs the need to maximize the profit. So if we want to maximize the profit, we have to make sure that we have processes in place that we trust and that are also telling us if and when there are any red flags that we should be aware of. So how do we assess how well our intake is doing? Well, the best metric available in our industry is something called conversion percentage. And regardless of what you do, personal injury, employment, family, disability, doesn't matter to me. The best metric is conversion percentage. And I need you to understand what that means. Conversion percentage means of all the leads that qualify for representation. If they qualify for representation, you need to know what percent of those leads sign. That tells you how good you're doing internally. It doesn't tell you how good your marketing is. Your marketing is really based upon what your want percentage is. If I got 500 leads and 100 of them qualify, well, now I know my want percentage is 20%. Well, for that month over month, then you're going to understand, well, why did my qualification percentage dip down to 6% last month? Was my marketing message wrong? Did I not market as directly or clearly about what I want? And by the way, a little marketing tip from my perspective, be very clear about what you want. Don't be very general. Be very specific about what you want. So your qualification or want percentage tells you about your marketers. Your conversion percentage tells you about your internal processes. That means they called up. Someone called up and you decided based upon your criteria, I want this claimant as a client. I want this client. And I sent them my documentation for signature maybe. How many did I get signed? That's your conversion rate. That's where it tells you how good your intake is. And if I can tell you, I'm going to kind of go back and forth because I want to go through this PowerPoint, and it's important that a lot of things I say, I repeat because I think the best way to learn and teach is through repetition. When it comes to making a decision about whether you want someone as a client, guys, please don't be so restrictive. It is better to retain than reject than never to retain at all. That's my Shakespearean intake analogy for you. All right. It's better to retain than reject than never to retain at all. And if you're playing the game of investigating or reviewing pre-qualification or pre-retention, you're likely leaving a lot of money on the table. Okay. So average conversion rate, well, for personal injury nationwide, for general negligence, about 70 to 75%. Mass torts, 50 to 60%. Auto accidents or injury claims, lawyers, it should be greater than 95%. 95%. I've worked with law firms that sign more than 400 cases a month, and they're converting at 97, 98 month over month. Mass torts, it should be greater than 80%. Now you might ask, Gary, why is it different? Why is mass torts not as high as personal injury? And the reason why is because the personal injury law firms usually have a brand that they see. It's a local brand, so there's more trust. Where in mass torts, you have these random law firms marketing for cases and no one knows who they are. But at the end of the day, the point is there is tremendous room for improvement. But in order to improve, and Sam, tell me what caveats you're considering.
Traffic specific. I'm assuming those numbers are Google based, higher intent.
Those are, see, you're using conversion differently than I am. You're using web conversion, marketing conversion. I'm going straight up from what the law firms are doing internally in their CRMs. When they send out an agreement, how many are coming back? What percentage are coming back?
From the ones where they come from, though.
Regardless of where they came from.
That's the thing, though. It does matter. It does matter. If it came from Google, that's different from a referral. That's different from Facebook. That's different from
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. I'm not going to get that minute on this call, but you're absolutely right. This is just straight general numbers. Regardless of where the leads came from or how large you are, unfortunately, the average conversion rate for PI law firms is about 75%, and it's got to be closer to 95%. But I appreciate that you wanted that you obviously understand that a referral should have a higher conversion rate than a Google SEO lead that comes in.
Correct. Can I give the polar opposite of other side?
Please.
We do a lot of Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and YouTube and things like that. The conversion rate that we shoot for is 10%. And
is
a lot of people
from qualified lead, or is that conversion from lead to retention?
Qualified leads, 10% of qualified leads we shoot for to sign up. And that sounds crazy and insanity to some people, and especially for people who haven't done it. And I don't blame them because it's a whole different playing field. But again, that's because that platform interruption, not really in the market. But if you really get it down right and you even get the 10%, the cost acquisition beats out any other source, and you could be very, very profitable. So,
and let me ask you a question so that we're definitely talking oranges to oranges. when you say conversion, is it possible you're referring to person A reaches out to law firm through Instagram? How many of people that have reached out to the law firm through Instagram ultimately retained?
These are through ads, not necessarily through social media posts and people
Okay,
reaching out
through
to
ads.
us.
But you're converting from a lead to client at 10%.
Correct.
So
Well,
on average,
from qualified leads to
right, qualified, right. So, and I want to make sure we distinguish for everybody on this call. When I use the word qualified, and I always have this conversation with the marketers, I'm using it differently than you are. You're qualifying the lead to become a lead. I'm talking about qualifying someone who has already become a lead to see whether it's somebody we want to sign. They're meeting our internal criteria. They spoke with one of our dedicated intake specialists or representatives. We asked a whole slew of 7 to 10 or 15 questions. They said, yes, I was in, I spoke to them and they said, yes, I was injured. It happened last week. It was this one's fault. I sent out an agreement. That's qualified at another level. You're talking about qualified submission.
Correct. Exactly.
Yeah. And by the way, 10% isn't so much off than, I would say that just so the average want rate from all the leads that a law firm gets, what percent of them the law firm actually wants as a client? The average wants right around 18 to 22%, right around 20%. And it changes. I've worked with law firms that are 50% qualification rate. I've worked with law firms that were 8% qualification rate. All right, let's keep going here.
Gary, and I work with some that are like 1%.
Yeah, I'm sure you have. I'm certain of it. So then, guys, why are the numbers so low? Why are we not signing as many clients that we've already qualified that we want to sign? What's going on here, right? So the competition is intense and there are too many leaks in the process, which means that we have to look in the mirror. And if I had to give you a list, guys, of the reason for the low conversion rates, this is the list. I know it's a little bit small, probably on your screen, but I'm just going to read them through. I'm not going to jump into each of these for more than 10 seconds. But you either have the wrong person on the phone, your nights and weekends are neglected, you're not monetizing or managing referrals, you're not appreciating the claimant's mentality, maybe you're not using your CRM appropriately, categorizing or statusing or document, you're not tracking certain KPIs, you're not giving your staff authority to make decisions. That is a huge one. That is a huge one. If you're playing the callback game, you're in trouble. You're leaving money on the table. Whoever picks up the phone needs to have the authority and the experience and knowledge, which you can train them with, to make decisions. Lack of accountability, outdated technology, not conveying positivity, interest, urgency, compassion, reassurance, or a roadmap. I bring up roadmap. I think it gets overlooked a lot. I think one of the major failures that us human beings have with each other is we don't manage each other's expectations well at all. When a caller calls into your firm, they should know exactly how the phone call is going to go. Just like when they become a client, they should know when they should hear from the law firm, as well as how long the litigation might last. What's one of the biggest complaints that clients have about their law firms? That no one calls them back, right? Well, what if we manage their expectations at the outset and said, hey, Mrs. Johnson, first of all, welcome to our law firm. You're in great hands. We're going to probably reach out to you once every couple of months, once every 3 to 4 months, because we're not going to have many updates for you. We're doing a lot of the litigation or the documenting or the investigating behind the scenes. You can always call us whenever you'd like, but I just want to make sure we're not going to call you on a weekly or even a monthly basis sometimes because we've got a lot going on. Manage the expectations. I'm not an owner of a client portal system, but I am so bullish on those systems right now. If you want fewer calls coming into your office, you want fewer unhappy clients, you've got to give them the ability to know exactly where their client is, or not even exactly. They just need to know. They need to know that they have, just like you have your own health portal, they need to know where their case is. And I'm a strong believer that you should probably consider one for your firm. Not listening to or critiquing calls, poor intake culture, insufficient written guidelines and procedures, lack of attorney involvement, and not proactively searching for inefficiencies. So how does it really work? The first step is,
do you mind if we go to the last screen? Out of these 15, which are the top 3 that you see are by far the most common and biggest pain points?
That's a great question. I like that. The top 3 are probably insufficient written guidelines and procedures. I think that's one of them. There's a lot of improvisation that goes on internally in a law firm, and that's certainly not going to lead to success. The next one is probably nights, weekends are neglected. I think as you guys, we're not a 5-day-a-week, 9 to 5 business. Even if you want it to be, even if you want to be one of those armchair lawyers, I work 3 days a week and I'm making $6 million a year, I can teach you how to do it. That's not the point. You have a business that is open 24/7, 365. That doesn't mean you have to get in the phone at 2:30 in the morning, but it does mean that you have to have a process in place so that someone can, because it's so competitive. And I'm gonna use a line here, which I'll use later on as well. But I think it's my favorite line these days. I have a different line that I lean on. My line is, your response time is more valuable than your resume. Your response time is more important to a potential client than your resume. They don't ask you what law school you went to. They don't ask you what your GPA was. They don't care about your LSATs. They assume you're a good lawyer. They assume you have great resources. But if you're not fast with the response time, you might lose to the guy who went to the tier 3 law school using mommy and daddy's money working from the basement, which is fine, but you don't want to lose to that person. You want to lose to someone. You don't want to lose at all, by the way. But you want to make sure that you're not losing because of poor procedures. And then lastly, if I had to pick a third one, it's probably not giving our staff authority to make decisions. Callbacks kill me. If you tell someone that someone's going to review their matter and someone will get back to you, you're leaving money on the table. We are in an instant gratification world right now. I'll give you, I'm not trying to depress anybody, so please don't take it that way, but I really try to bring up my son as much as possible. My family suffered just the most awful tragedy about 6 months ago. The worst thing you can imagine, parents. The worst effing thing. Okay, my 14-year-old son was killed by a drunk. Okay, worst thing in the world. Okay, if I knew you right now, I'd probably be crying because I feel comfortable. These days, I cry to a tree. But I bring up my son Ethan because there's a story that I think we could all learn from about the state of the world that we're living in. So about a year ago, maybe less, Ethan said to me, "Hey, Dad, can we go watch the new Scream movie in the movie theaters?" I said, "Absolutely." I said, he probably told me this on a Monday. I said, "Absolutely." He goes, "I just watched all the old Scream movies." I go, "The first one was when I was your age, but okay, you watched them all, great." He goes, "I want to watch the new one." I said, let's go Friday or Saturday at the movie theater. I'll get tickets. Sounds good. On Thursday morning, I said to Ethan, "Hey, you never got back to me. What day or time do you want to go see the movie this weekend?" And Ethan said, "No, I don't need to see it anymore." "What do you mean?" "I saw it last night." What do you mean you saw it last night?" "Oh, I spent like 2 or 3 hours online looking for someone who had recorded the the movie in the movie theater." And I said, "Oh man," I said, "How illegal that is, right?" He goes, "Yeah, I know, but I didn't record it. Someone else did. I just watched it." I said, "The quality of that video, of that movie must have been terrible." He said, "It was awful." I said, "Let's go to the movie theater and watch it." He goes, "No, I already saw it." To him, watching that movie was more important than the quality of watching the movie. He didn't care. It didn't have to be in the theater. He just needed it right then and there. That's the industry we're in. You think about the red zone on Sundays when you're watching football. You can't even watch one game anymore. You got to watch 8 games at the same time. You think about Uber. You think about Amazon. The faster you are, the better you'll do. And that goes with giving our staff the ability to make decisions so that we're not wasting time.
How do you do quality control?
I mean, you have to have accountability procedures in place, right? You have to listen to phone calls. You have to have managers or supervisors. It's, Gary, I don't have the resources to do that. That costs money. I get it. So you end up cutting corners. But as you get larger, you have to make sure that everyone's doing the role that they were asked to do. And I think quality control, especially when it comes to making decisions, isn't that difficult, right? Because whatever they signed, you should be seeing what was signed, and you can confirm, hey, that was right, you signed the right case. Or maybe you could use it as a teaching moment, say, we shouldn't have signed this case, let me tell you why. Same thing goes for rejections. There should be a report that says, here are all the leads we rejected yesterday, right? Or last month, depending on how big you are, and large you are. And you review all those rejections, and you figure out, hey, did we make a mistake here? But it's like any other business. We have to, just like the local Macy's will look at, hey, here's all of our supply, and here's what was sold, and here's what was returned. We have to do the same thing with our leads. Here are all the decisions we made. Let's confirm that the decisions were correct. Is there a teaching opportunity, or do we acknowledge and reward? Okay, so how does it really work, our industry? Well, first step is we got to catch them all. Second step, we have to rush to judgment. Third step, we convince them to sign. The fourth step is staying accountable to the process. When I say catch them all, guys, I believe that 99% of your leads have some value, even if it's not a case that your law firm will handle internally. Maybe it's a future marketing opportunity. Maybe there's a strong customer service lead that can create more referrals. What once seemed like no case might actually become one. I find this a lot. So these folks that just because you couldn't help them that moment, because they said I was in an accident yesterday, and you ask, were you injured? I don't think so. I'm pretty good. Okay, now you call back a week later. Hey, Mrs. Johnson, this is Gary from the Fuckwits Law Firm. We spoke last week. I just wanted to check in. How are you feeling? Actually, Gary, I started going to the doctor. My back started hurting about 2 days after I spoke with you. Oh my God, I'm so sorry to hear that. You probably have a case we can help you out with. Oh, really? Yeah, because I called a week later to check in on you. It could be a referral for a different case type or a law firm. Guys, referrals in our industry are so underutilized. Just because you only handle one type of case, if your marketing is generating leads for a different type of case, capitalize on your license. So many law firms are willing to honor referral fees. I have law firms that make more than 50% of their revenue from referrals. I spoke with somebody yesterday who was expecting this year to make more than $1 million in referrals. And I think he's expecting to make less in internal cases. So please capitalize on referrals. How about this one? Get your contact information in their cell phone. This is one of my favorite things. So this is a true story. Everything I tell you is so true. I happen to be very lucky in this sense, and unlucky in other senses, obviously. I happen to be lucky that I never have to make up a story for my business, right? I've seen so many things that unfortunately, it's a pretty ugly world out there. So I want to tell you, I needed an electrician because my smoke detector kept going off in the middle of the night the other night. And my usual electrician wasn't responding. So I texted a group of friends of mine on a group text. I said, guys, anybody have an electrician they like? And someone, I think 3 people responded, but I took the first one. Called him, he came this morning. I didn't go to Google. I texted my group friends, and he texted me the contact that he had saved in his phone to me. And now I saved that contact in my phone. If you guys are not getting your contact in your leads' phones, you're losing out on opportunities. You want them to become advocates. You want them to share your contact with all of their friends. When somebody says, my nephew just got into a car accident, does anybody have any recommendations? Oh, I have one right now. Let me forward you their contact. You beat Google. You got to think about that. You want to create advocates, and guess what? You paid for the lead, so you might as well get that information. Now, Capture Now, I have you. I created a product with my business partners because I used to have a call center. I owned, operated a call center called Intake Conversion Experts, which was ultimately acquired. We focused on retention for high volume law firms. And what I realized was that, first of all, owning a call center is quite difficult. But more importantly, I realized that call centers are antiquated. They're antiquated. We are literally relying on human beings who we don't train, human beings who we have no accountability, who have no accountability to us, and human beings who have no experience in our industry to pick up our calls. Hopefully they have a good representation. Hopefully they say the name of our law firm, and we have them pick up, and some law firms even have them they handle intakes or non-intakes. And we said to ourselves, this is crazy. What are the Fortune 500 companies doing? And you think about it. You call Delta, you call Amazon, you call Apple, you call Square, you call all these companies, call American Express, and on the first ring, they get picked up. And it's not a human being, it's a voice bot. And the voice bot begins to ask you some questions. Sometimes you're even a known caller, so they know you. We said, this is ridiculous. We got to create this for legal. And that's what we did. We created Capture Now. It's an AI voice bot that responds on the first ring 24/7. Whether you want to use it for your new leads or your reception or your current clients or nights or weekends, it doesn't matter. You get to decide when you forward those calls. If you want warm transfer to qualified leads, great. They'll answer a few questions. Yes, you put a phone number in, warm transfers to the appropriate person. More than 50 case types, whether it's overflow, primary, reception, intake. You heard me say that potential clients value your response time more than your response. And quite frankly, with the call centers, guys, I just got sick and tired of the missed calls. How about the automated message when nobody is available? Recently, I had a law firm. They called their own law firm in the evening just to see what it was like. And the call center picked up and said, thank you for calling the name of the call center, not the name of the law firm. I had another law firm recently tell me that their call center shut down, I got to get this right, for 2 weeks. They didn't say they shut down, so they had an automated message that said something like, no one's available right now, please call back another time. This is for the law firm. Another law firm called me up and said, Gary, I just waited 8 minutes for someone to pick up my call. Raise your hand if you've ever waited 8 minutes other than trying to change a fight potentially, right? For someone to pick up your call. It doesn't happen. So that's why we created Capture Now. And if you have any, you should definitely reach out, go to that website, and I'll even give you, I'll put it online right now. If you signed up, I'll give you your first month for free. It's a $200 platform fee, but I'll give you your first month for free. Let's keep going because this is not a sales pitch.
Your live demo of that?
Yeah, they have absolutely they have it. I don't have one right now, but there's definitely a demo, and you should definitely schedule that. Absolutely. So the second step here is a rush to judgment. Guys, you may not take your time. It is better to retain than reject than never to retain at all. You heard that. We want to keep it simple. There's no room for callbacks. I use this 3 R's. If there's anything you take from this call, and hopefully there's a lot, if there's anything you take from this call, I want you to remember the 3 R's. After every conversation you have with a caller, your goal is to either retain that case, reject that case, or refer that case. Stay away from the 4th R, which is review that case. 3 R's: retain, reject, refer. That is your goal.
Perfect goal to give to every intaker. There's nothing else to do.
Exactly right.
Yep.
It's exactly right. And a lot of times they don't want to make that decision because they're nervous they'll make the wrong decision, or they're not prepared to make that decision, or they're not giving the authority to make that decision. There's no rooms for delays in decision making. There's certainly no room for fence sitting. And remember about investigation. Remember, and here's another little a quick one for you. Try not to use the word retainer anymore. Remove it from your vocabulary. When you're speaking with a claimant, it is an agreement. Retainer is scary as F, okay? Retainer means that you're paying some money up front, and maybe for some of your industries, for some of your businesses you are, which is fine too, but use an agreement. It's a softer word. There's a softer meaning to it. Plus it means that you have a responsibility and they have a responsibility. And if you're looking to convince somebody to become a client, explain to them that you cannot begin an investigation. You can't even begin an investigation until they sign that agreement. So sign that agreement, give me permission to begin an investigation. If at some point we decide we can't help, we're gonna but at least give me permission to begin an investigation for you. I can't call anybody as your lawyer until you sign that agreement. Guys, it's a competition, right? Retain, then investigate, not investigate. I hate when I consult for a law firm and I open up their CRM and I see a note in there that says requested, or I hear a call and the call says to Mrs. Johnson, if you could just get us a copy of that police report, we'll let you know whether we can help. Are you kidding me? How many people are going to hang up and go call another lawyer immediately because you asked them to do something? We don't have that luxury. We don't have that luxury. Sign it up. What's the worst that can happen? You reject it? Okay, so then you reject it. Have a conversation with the client. Explain why we're rejecting it. Okay, third step, convincing them to sign. If a desperate person needed to cross one of these bridges to survive, which would they choose? The obvious answer is the top right one, right? Because the more attractive your bridge is, the easier it is to cross, the more desirable you make the destination, the more interested they'll be in crossing it. If you make it scary for them, if you tell them to get the police report, if you tell them to come into the office, if you ask them for specific detailed personal information from them early on, you're scaring them. And you are a commodity. Please, please, please understand that you are a commodity. Please remove entitlement from owning a business. Please understand that you guys are competing in business. You got to understand that. And the fourth step is accountability. Share your goals, review your metrics, proactively look for holes, conduct frequent meetings, and the biggest one, acknowledge and reward. Guys, people at your intake level, there's a reason why there's a revolving door. It's a revolving door position. People get really, first of all, it's a thankless job most of the time. Second of all, have you ever tried staying on the phone all day long? It's so tiring. And third of all, they don't feel like there's any room for growth. If we have a reward system in place and we provide feedback and we acknowledge how great they're doing, they're going to want to stay. So it's really important you do that. What are my favorite KPIs? I like to look at the want percentage, my conversion percentage, my average time to follow up on web leads, my average number of attempts before quitting, mail out percentage versus electronic versus other, my average sign up time between lead and qualifying and then between qualifying and signing, retained then rejected percentage, my average number of cases qualified on the first call, my average number of qualified leads retained electronically on the first call, reasons claimants provide for not proceeding, my review of leads that are in under review or pending, which we want to stay away from, my referrals. Guys, you need to have multiple referral statuses. You got to have a referral status of someone that has not yet been acknowledged, someone that has been acknowledged, someone that has been qualified but not yet signed, and obviously the ones that have been signed. We got to hold our law firms accountable to the same standard we hold our internal team accountable to. Okay, so what is the claim?
Top three, Gary?
Top three. Three.
I'm gonna top three everything.
Up three. My conversion percentage, obviously, because it allows me to review my lost cases. Please review your lost cases. And by lost, I mean, I wanted it, I sent an agreement out, and I didn't get it signed. They went somewhere else. I need to know why. I want to listen to that call. I want to look at my follow-up cadence. I want to know which intake specialist spoke with that claimant. I want to know what questions they asked. So that's number one. Number two, probably my retained then rejected percentage. Gary, what's that mean? That means of all the cases we ultimately retained and then proactively rejected post-retention, what's that percentage like? Is it 5%? Or is it 30%? What are the reasons? Because once I get a better sense of the reasons, I can figure out whether my qualification criteria is too loose or too rigid. And my third one is probably my average time to follow up on web leads. I mean, this is a simple one. It's an obvious one. If we're not quick, we lose. Again, your resume is not a factor. Your response time is. So what's the claimant's mentality? They're always seeking immediate gratification. The interest level is highest during the first contact. They're looking for reassurance. That's such a big one. This reassurance one, guys. Quick little story. My phone broke a while back and I couldn't figure out if it was Apple's fault or Verizon's fault. Every time I left the house and I was not on my internal Wi-Fi, I had no reception. This is years ago. By the way, Sam, I see a bunch of chats. If I miss, I have not looked at any of them. So if there are any questions, feel free to throw them out at me.
People are asking for the slides.
Got it.
Yeah.
So my phone broke. Apple, Verizon, whose fault is it? I called both. And every time I called Apple, their technician would say to me, okay, so tell me the problem again. And I'd say the problem. And they'd say, oh, yeah. We dealt with that problem before. I can fix this for you. They lied through their teeth. They couldn't fix it for like 2 weeks. But because they said that to me, I was willing to give them 45 minutes of my time each time I called. Oh yeah, we can do that. We handle that problem all the time. You guys got to give reassurance to your callers that you can help them, or that at least it's relevant what they're calling about. If you don't give them reassurance, if they hang up that telephone call and they yell out to their spouse, hey honey, I just spoke with ABC Law Firm. How did it go? I don't know. They didn't really tell me if they can help me or not, but they said give me a call back. Call somebody else. That's how that conversation is going to go. You've got to at least tell them you did the right thing by calling. We handle blank cases every single day. Okay. A lot of times they don't believe that hiring an attorney is a priority, so we have to communicate that for them. They're hoping for clear and easy steps to take. They don't want to be intimidated. They want to form a trusting relationship, and they want you to listen. They want their questions answered. They want to be reminded. That's why the follow-up is so important. They want to make it about them, not about you. Stay away from how did you find us? That's about you. Keep it about the caller. We'll tell you if they're not interested. They'll even tell you why they're not interested. So please, they do not believe their cases with injury cases. Lots of times people don't even call because they think that their injury is not big enough. Why? Because they watch TV commercials where they go, ABC Law Firm got me $12 million. This one got me $4 million. And they go, well, I just have a fractured wrist. That's not a $14 million case. I'm not going to call. Little do they know, it's exactly what the law firm wants. But attorneys have such a bad reputation, they're just out to get money from me. We got to get over that hump. That's what people think about us. But I don't want to testify. I don't want to go to trial. I don't need the stress I see on TV. Guys, their only reference to what we do is the movies and TV. So we've got to clarify that for them. Here are some statistics to consider when evaluating your intake. Only 10% of salespeople, and we are salespeople, we have a business, is a sales business. Only 10% of salespeople make more than 3 contacts. 80% of sales are made on the 5th to 12th contact. Only 13% of customers believe a salesperson can understand their need. 30 to 50% of sales go to the vendor that responds first. If I had to guess, I would think this is much higher. I would think this is in the legal community. If you follow up with web leads within 5 minutes, and it should be sooner than that, you're 9 times more likely to convert them. Again, if I had to guess, it's got to be faster than that. Thinking about how fast people are and how they move from one activity to another, you got to catch them when they're still in front of the computer. 80% of calls go to voicemail, and 90% of first-time voicemails are never returned. So it's something about voicemails that I really want to make sure you guys are aware of. I don't know about you, but I don't listen to every voicemail I get, especially with an Apple phone and other smartphones. You don't have to listen. You can read them. They get transcribed, which means that when you're leaving a voicemail, make the words that you use very deliberate. Make sure you're using words that you want the caller to understand and speak clearly, because they may not hear you, but they're reading it. Here's an illustration for you. It's a car dealership. Why do I have a car dealership on this presentation? Well, because I want to share with you something that we can learn from. When you go into a car dealership and you're thinking about buying or leasing a new car, you walk in, you sit down with the salesperson for about a half hour. You go through the numbers, you negotiate, you feel pretty good. You tell the salesperson, what, thanks so much. I'm gonna go home, I'm gonna share this with my wife, and I'll be back. And the salesperson says, whoa, 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 whoa. Please don't leave yet. Allow me to introduce you to our manager. Why is the salesperson doing that? For a few reasons. Number one, they know that you're gonna shop the numbers that you just negotiated with them with another car dealership, probably right down the block. Number two, they want to make you feel special. So they're getting, quote, the manager and taking time out of his busy or her busy day to speak with you. And number three, they don't want you leaving that dealership without a check in their hand and keys in your hand. They know they may not get a second bite at the apple. Gary, what does this have to do with what I do? Well, when you're speaking with a qualified claimant on the telephone, if you don't have all hands on deck, if you don't make an attorney available just to convert that lead, then you're potentially leaving an opportunity for someone else to capitalize on. So if the car dealership knows this, shouldn't we here, if you're not using electronic agreements, if you're not using technology appropriately, you're getting stuck, you're being antiquated using a call center for things that technology can handle. Don't do that, you're gonna get stuck behind. Remember about the small cases. Many small cases can equal one large case. Ounces equal pounds. So please do not disregard the ounces. And lastly, if I could ever help anybody, certainly reach out to me anytime you'd like. I have my consulting practice. I have my intake and client advocacy masterclass. I do firm presentations. I have Capture Now, and I co-counsel law firms where we handle the intake for mass torts.